Okay, this is our water and sewer meeting, June 13th at 6:30. We have a quorum, so I appreciate everybody coming in. Dylan's has a family event and Paul's in Italy. I don't know why he can't zoom in, but he didn't.
It's the middle of the night. It's the middle of the night for him, right?
Probably.
Thank you.
Right, so there should be a copy of the April 11th meeting notes. If somebody want to make a motion to approve those. I'll make the motion to approve them.
I will second the motion.
Joe. Any comments? This is from April. We can have a form in May.
Thanks.
Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We have an agenda. One thing I want to add is on second page of number 4. We talked about the, oh no, I did include, okay. Discussion regarding the 1-year time frame for utility sewer and new water connections. So I want to make sure. And that code is for water 52.020 for the water. 52.021 is the sewer, and there's copies of both those highlighted verbiage in your packet that we need to review in their agenda, so for a recommendation. Make a motion, we approve the agenda. Is there a second? I guess I'd second it. Very, okay. Nice. All in favor, say aye. Aye. That's approved.
I'm confused, you guys don't have the agenda I sent out? This is the agenda that I previously been doing,
You know what?
This is the
No,
agenda.
no, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because yours has numbers on it.
I copied the wrong one. I'm sorry.
I can run this in and just have Sunny make copies.
Yeah, please do. I would check my. That was the draft I put together, then Joe reviewed it and updated it. So the agenda. For June 13th is, I'll take those copies. Is null and void. Yeah.
Okay. Gotta turn in your agenda, they're gonna chisel out a new one.
Yeah, just give you the copies. Get it in there. Time for everything.
I reuse this my paper like that at home because, well, a lot of stuff, we go through about 3 cases of paper a year. So we try to reuse used paper.
Right.
And
You want to get those pages?
now I've got a stack about that high that we can
Oh,
reuse,
okay.
so it's gaining every day because people keep printing off stuff and this and that, and then as we. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah.
Pages, but it's back to back. That's good. Serve paper.
A little bit different agenda to maybe adopt. This didn't have that discussion about the, 1 versus 2 year sewer service, but we've got a lot of other stuff on there.
Well. Is that worth discussing?
Well, it's certainly worth discussing. It's just, do we wanna get into it tonight? Cause there's some other stuff that's probably.
Yeah, we have some more pressing issues.
But if we're adopting, we're supposed to discuss. 51-0.021, isn't that the 1 year versus 2?
Yeah, highlighted red.
Yeah.
The one copy's for water, the other one's for sewer.
So, are we gonna discuss this one tonight or not?
It's at the end of our agenda if we have time, but
Oh.
we have more
Okay,
dollar items to cover.
all right,
It'll get to. If not. This month, July for sure.
okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
All right, we have agenda approved or minutes approved. So Joe, if you wanna. Kick it off.
Yeah, so we have a fair amount of stuff to talk about, starting at the wastewater treatment facility, contract 1. We did have, like every month, we prepare this kind of summary of what the contractor has been working on and what they're gonna be doing over the next month. They continue to make a lot of progress out there. Most recently, they've essentially completed all the pipe work. They're backfilling structures, moving dirt. They continue with HVAC, electrical. HVAC is pretty much done. Electrical, there's still a fair amount of work to do, but they're coming to a point where they're running out of work until the MCC stuff comes in. That's supposed to come in early July, so things are shaping up pretty good from that perspective, assuming that holds. And then just miscellaneous piping and equipment installs and things like that. So there continues to be a fair amount going on out there. The contractor is making good progress. Has anybody been out to the site? Have you guys been out lately? You have, yeah, so
I was
you,
out there last week, kind of a quick walk through, so busy.
Can you just go out there and walk around as long as you have a vest and a hat on?
I would like. Yeah, yeah, just so people they get a little skittish when people just start walking around if they don't know who you are and whatever, and that's understandable, but.
Can you
Yeah.
Can you go Thursday?
Yeah.
Cause I like to go out too. I was gonna ask tonight.
Yeah, what time?
1 o'clock after lunch.
Yeah.
All right, meet here or meet out there.
We can meet out there.
Okay. Bargain, cool. Thank you.
Give Jeff a holler if you're out there and he can swing in if you want to. But again, they continue to make pretty good progress. And things are kind of coming to a head in some areas, and it's really starting to look like you'd think it would look with the dirt getting back in place and those types of things coming in. They're even starting to talk about or starting to place topsoil and thinking about placing decorative rock around the buildings and pouring sidewalks and doing those types of things. So it's starting to take pretty good shape. So I will just let you kind of peruse this. It's got some interesting text and pictures. It's kind of a quick read, but it gives you a pretty good update on what's going on and what's coming. We do have pay requests for the contractor this month, pay request number 18 to the tune of about $613,196.96. So that'll go to the council on the 20th. Material delivery delays that's been the main point of concern here for the last 4 or 5 months. for sure that we've been talking about. And so there's really two components that we've been concerned about. One is, the biggest one is the electrical switchgear. And so if you remember, we found out in March that the supplier Eaton wasn't going to be able to provide that switchgear until October of 2024. Which is, you know, a year and a quarter behind when they were supposed to provide it. And we have been meeting with them. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but they came up with a plan to provide that switchgear through a satellite facility in May of 24. And with that option, the automatic transfer switch, you know, it basically transfers to the generator power if there's an issue, would have been separate from that switchgear, so it would just been a separate mount, separate but more wiring. And to do that, they are asking for about an extra $65,000. So we'll get into that a little bit when we talk about the change orders, but that's kind of the status. And so yesterday we got an email that essentially said, well, this all kind of came about. They told us what it would cost about 10 days ago. And about 2 weeks ago, we sat in a meeting and they said, well, we kind of need to know if you're going to do this or not next week, you know, and then next week comes and, well, we got the cost, and cities don't work like that. I mean, cities just don't make decisions, and I sure wasn't going to make that decision. Again, we'll get into it. Frankly, I think since we're talking about it, we'll already be on temporary power in May. Why not stay on temporary power for another 5 months and save yourself $65,000? Feels a little blackmailish, frankly. So I didn't push the issue to bring it in front of the council, but I also told them, we're gonna do this, it needs to go to council and we need some time to deal with that. And they sent an email that it's too late, the window closed, and so if we want to do that, they'll renegotiate with another satellite, but that's kind of the status. So it's kind of a non-issue unless the council wants that to happen and wants to push for that May date. I think we all want the stuff as quickly as we can get it. We've told them that. But we really kind of want them to honor their contract. Anyway.
Yeah, right now, we don't have a firm date either when they're gonna come back and offer. If they're gonna go to another satellite to try and get it to us, or, and they really didn't commit when we, not either.
They said they were hoping to deliver it in late May rather than October. But they don't guarantee that.
Of 24.
Of 24. They don't guarantee anything.
All this delay stuff, this temporary stuff, who's standing behind the cost of that?
That's the issue we'll talk about tonight.
Okay.
So that's kind of what the status is with the switchgear and at least the delivery schedule. The other big item is the motor control centers. Essentially right downstream of the switchgear. And so they are scheduled to be delivered on July 7th. We had a construction coordination meeting today, and again, the electrician is saying that all of the information that they have says it's coming. But he also says you never know until it's here. Which is true, but they're also kind of saying that the manufacturer of that is Allen Bradley Rockwell, and they've been better, especially lately, meeting dates. But you know, there's no guarantee, and so we talk about the switch gear and the temporary panel to power the facility, and getting the facility operational in October. That is the plan. So commissioning in September, operational in October. With the use of a temporary electrical panel or panels are provided by the contractor. But all of that is moot if the motor control centers don't come.
Is there, so like AB can get stuff, but who is delayed a year and a quarter? Who's the vendor? Siemens or Eaton? Can we switch vendors or no?
Contractors looked at 2 or 3 other vendors. You know,
Like
there's,
Siemens or Square D or somebody doesn't have it.
and they're no faster.
Sure. On commissioning with a temporary service, would it be require another pass of commissioning or no?
Not of the equipment itself, but of the electrical, of the switchgear,
Right.
yeah.
So it'd be a second pass of commissioning, once it was permanent.
Yeah,
Or I suppose they wouldn't even commission the temporary stuff, maybe.
yeah, probably not.
Okay. But they would have to revisit, I would assume they're gonna commission what they can. You know, when the plant is essentially ready, be it temporary power or not. And they'd have to make a second pass.
Right, everything, all the equipment should work the same, it's just
Right.
how the electricity gets there. and
Right.
that
If they
configuration.
check their boxes on commissioning.
Right, right.
Joe,
All right.
I assume a lot of stuff out there is gonna be on 3-phase. So when all this equipment changes out, is there any chances of getting the phases reversed? Because then motors run reverse order, or, you know, the wrong direction. So if you commission them under temporary power and then the permanent power reverses the phases. I had that happen in Rochester. We had a fire pump where a big control panel burned up and they came in with temporary power. And then they were gonna run it. And fire pump ran the wrong way because it was 3-phase. It ran the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's an
So-
easy fix.
I don't know that there's a lot of risk to that, you know, there's always risk to doing these things, but since that's probably all controlled by the motor control centers,
That's
Just
a startup
downstream of that.
deal, yeah.
that wiring shouldn't change, it's just the power coming into the motor control centers from the transformer, and that's where that reconfiguration, as I understand it, has to change.
And there'd be a startup on a new switchgear and they'd catch
Have to be.
that at startup, yeah. So-
Yeah, and so we've talked about that process, 2 days.
Sure,
Because the plant's operational at that point, and so certain things have to run in order to keep the process going
Right.
and, or at least be able to store that water and keep the bugs alive.
right. Like that,
for-
the bug alive.
Yeah, for those few, or at least that 48 hours. And so we've kind of come up with a plan that we think is viable using the generator. The power, you know, the on-site permanent generator to power the blowers that need to run, and we have a fair amount of just storage in the facility that we can take that incoming flow for a few days and just not treat. So we have some advantages from that perspective. So that's kind of where we get to the change order discussion. So the contractor at the end of May sent a bunch of change orders. And I have a little bit of a discussion within the
Before you do that, Joe, did you talk about the 400 amp temporary? Cover that enough.
well, I think I kind of covered that, just that that's what the contractor's plan is to install 2 400 amp temporary electric panels to run the critical equipment.
What's the difference between the temporary ones and the permanent ones?
They're much bigger.
Oh,
And we can get by that with that temporary 400 amp or 800 amp service, if you will. Since our flows are so small on at the startup now, over the next 20 years, that's what that switch gear and everything is designed for. You know, it's designed for the ultimate load. And so the first year load, day one load is very small in
yeah.
comparison. And so that's why you know, we can do that. Not all of the equipment will be operational. We don't need it to all be operational because our flows are so small. So we're not running, for example, two of the three SBR bays at one time, or we're probably gonna be running one half of one. Until we gradually get to one full bay, you know, and so, you know, not all the blowers need to run because our flows are small. We don't have anything in the digesters and won't for a while. You know, we have the ability to run with a lesser power demand, and that's why this is an option.
Okay.
So I'd like to just kind of talk through these change order requests from the contractor that we received. Some of them we know about and have known about, some of them we just got last week. And didn't really know about. But just want to provide you with the big picture. And the other thing that I would emphasize as we look at these and talk about these is the contractor is pretty savvy, and this might be what they're putting out there, but it's like playing cards or buying a car or anything else, right? It is. You know, you kind of start up here and you'd be happy if you get somewhere between where the city's at and where they're at, you know, and ultimately we probably will end up meeting somewhere in the middle. Because some of these are definitely valid, and you know, the switchgear thing I struggle with a little bit because that's the biggest issue here, and that feeds a temporary panel and all this. And, you know, there is definitely some problems with switchgear throughout the whole industry, and you can look at projects in different industries and it's causing a problem. And there are delays, and the contractor will tell you that on a lot of their problems, they're seeing it too. But on the other side of it, you know, shop drawings didn't come in as quickly as they maybe could have. They were approved on August 1st of 2022. And the order didn't get finalized until early 2023. Well, you know, at that point, we really didn't have a lot of chance to meet the completion date. And the contractor is saying, well, there's lots of reasons for that. And there probably are some reasons for that. And, even if it was done quicker, would we might likely still have a problem? Yeah, you know, there's literally they're 15 months behind where they're supposed to be. And so even if we shave 6 months off of that, they're still late. And so we still have a problem. And so how to deal with that is tricky, because we have a contract and it has milestone completion dates. You know, technically per the contract that we were supposed to be starting operation in July for low flows, and then substantially complete full flows by October. And then final completion by early next year. Well, we're not definitely going to meet the July. With the temp power, we could meet the substantial completion date. But it won't be complete because we don't have our switchgear. And is that the contractor's fault or isn't it, you know, is debatable. But the thing is with each one of those completion dates, there's a liquidated damages clause, and that's $3,500 per calendar day. You know, so it's $100,000 a month. Well, it says that in the contract. Liquidated damages are a tricky little devil, because you know, it's just because it says it in the contract doesn't mean that if you hit the contractor with enough damages, you won't go to court and you won't lose. You know, you would ultimately have to prove damages. And I'm not an attorney, but I've been through this enough to kind of know the process, and I've played through the process enough. And it's not bulletproof. Let's just kind of say that. But it is something it's our leverage, right? It's the city's leverage, and we don't want to give that leverage away, in my opinion. You know, so we don't just want to say, oh, you just put in the temp power and we're going to forget about the damages. We're not going to do that, right? But on the other hand, the contractor is throwing a pretty good sized number at us and saying, well, we'll do the temp power for this cost. And, you know, that's a little bit of how this process works, you know, change orders are always more expensive than you would like or frankly think are reasonable sometimes. I think at the end of the day, we're gonna end up negotiating all these, and so some of these need to move forward and are reasonable, some of them aren't reasonable, some I think we just need to table, and some I think we need to just deny. And we'll play that negotiation game out a little bit. So that's kind of the big picture. The other things to kind of think about, we've been doing pretty well. To date, we're about $17,000 under the contract amount for all the change orders that have been processed. Most of them have been deducts, if you remember. So we're in good shape that way. And we also have a contingency for both projects. It's 2.5%. So on the $20 million wastewater treatment plant, it's, you know, it's $500 and some thousand. On both projects, you know, it's just under $1 million. It's $950,000. And we're in pretty good shape, even if we pay a pretty good chunk of these change orders to be within that contingency amount. We fully expect, you know, we'll use a good chunk of that contingency. Ideally, we won't use it all, but I'm guessing we're going to use a good chunk of it, maybe most of it. So talk about the change orders. Oh, the other thing I want to kind of mention is I'm a little bit, I don't know what to do with these. I want the committee to see these. I want the council to see these. But I sure don't want well, the public or the contract, you know, it's a negotiation, and I don't want to just flop our cards out there. That's not
Selective distribution.
it's not the way to do things, right?
Yeah.
So I just, you know, I decided we provide that to this group, and if I've asked Sunny how she wants to deal with the council and how to disseminate, if we're just gonna hand them out, if we're gonna put it in the packet, or what you guys want to do. But I think, again, we need to talk and be on the same page, but on the other hand, I think we need to be careful about the negotiation process. So first change order, they're in order. Actually, my number 2 in the agenda is the first one in the packet. So the first one in the packet is change order request 22. And that's number 2 in the agenda. So it totals $31,106. And so this is the sludge loadout station revision. We've been talking about this for months. And I've been working this back and forth with the contractor to kind of come up with a more reasonable cost. I think we started out at about 50,000. So a couple things. So if you'll turn to the part of that where there are drawings, about, I don't know, 5-6 pages in. The first one's the first drawing. So the sludge loadout station is where the biosolid is transferred from the tanks and discharged into typically a tank, right? Or a truck. Can be pulled behind a tractor, or it can be on a truck. And so these biosolids are then taken to the field and land applied. And so this detail that we have here is basically a ground mounted detail where you connect on and pipe it into the truck, or they make little feature, you can kind of see it on the very last page, a portable loadout stand. Basically a pipe, kind of like an auger, if you will, only without an auger. It's just got the piping that you pump it together, and the contractors that do biosolid loadout said, yeah, we've got these. It's not a huge deal. I think they would prefer the top load because then they don't have to deal with this, but they said they all have them. It's not an expensive piece of equipment, but it's something that you can use. And so this is a pretty straightforward one. I kind of look at it and I think to myself that you'd really like the one that you drive under and loads from the top. And so that's illustrated on the next, well, the next page in that plan is just the site plan that shows where this biosolved yard area is. So there's a concrete slab that the truck sits on, and then this would go over the top and load into the truck, and then you drive out. You drive in empty, make the circle around the treatment facility, pull under the loadout, and then pull out.
No, does this have the drain that Dylan talked about?
It does.
Okay, good.
Yep, so turn to the next page.
Okay.
So that drain, you can kind of see, it's a sludge loadout, drain manhole. And so the pieces in yellow are the parts that we would be adding. Okay, so you can see the loadout stand. There's some structural component, there's a support post, there's some additional fittings and valves. And then the other thing that we don't currently have is basically a remote start switch. So a remote start switch that starts pumps in either building from that location. And so the switches that were bid with it are actually in the building. I don't think that's practical. You need something on site so that you don't need two guys to run this. So I think you really need the switch. I think you could get by with the loadout detail like that was included in the plan. But they might have to bring additional pieces of equipment to make that work. And I think the best scenario really is the total loadout from the top, because I think it's the easiest, and you're kind of shaking your head like.
One and done.
Yeah.
You do it this one time, you make this investment, and you'll never have to deal with it again.
And so they are proposing to use stainless steel pipe. For that piece of the loadout stand, and you know, it's just a little slicker, more user-friendly configuration. I think you'll be happier with it in the long term, but if you want to save costs, the one thing I really do think you need is a remote start stop buttons. I wasn't included for whatever reason, probably something you want. And so this hasn't been built yet. With the exception of the T and the piping are to that point, so they got to start coming up out of the ground. So it's really, you want to do this, the contractor's anxious to do this. They want to probably start doing this within the next couple of weeks. So what I want to do, if you and the council are amenable to it, is I'll just tell them to get started after I get the green light from the council, and then we'll process a change order next month.
What's the change order gonna be?
$31,106.
And it's probably way too late, but there's no water there, is there? It goes down water. What is there?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a silk up there.
Yeah, you can't see it on the site plan, but there is actually you can, you see a 2-inch REW HEP pipe on the site plan, this one.
No, the overhead.
No, on the one before that, the middle drawing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably about 15-20 feet away from that load stand. So hook a hose to it and turn it on and
Do your thing, yeah,
do your thing. Flush out whatever spills.
right. It goes right back to the plant again.
Yeah, yeah, it drains back to the drain lift station.
Yeah.
And then get pumped up. So that's one that I think probably makes sense. I think you, in the long term, would be happiest with it. I see Kane's kind of shaking his head, yeah, like, yeah. So this is one that I think probably makes sense, but I'm asking what you want to do.
I think it'd be a lot fewer spills with that top load too, that rather than working at knee height or whatever it would be, so.
Is all of that concrete necessary, the 10-foot plus column?
Once they start
For supporting
cracking
the
truck
pipe.
into it, yes.
Yeah, you know, I think that's partly ballast, partly keep anything from moving. It's a lot of concrete, there's no doubt about it. I don't disagree, but part of it is to keep it from somebody from hitting it, and busting it too. And
Yeah.
so what's next to it is a support structure. So just to the right of the pipe is a support pipe and they get bolted together. And so it's just reinforcement, you know, because it does go up 13 feet in the air, something like that, 12, yeah, 13 feet in the air.
15 of the.
11 feet. From the top of the concrete to the top of the support post.
Yeah. Yeah, so ground elevation is 25 and it goes up to 39, so looks like it's about 14 feet high.
So the line, the pipe just to the left of the yellow brick rectangular structure, is that just a drain for the surface?
That's a valve.
Oh, that's the access to the valve, okay.
Yeah.
Coming
Yeah.
down from the top here, that's down the valve.
Yeah, so what
Okay.
you do is shut this valve, but then in the winter, you're gonna wanna drain this, right?
Right,
And this, and so then you open this and you drain it to this, and then you wash it down and the gravity flows back to the,
okay,
see what I mean?
yep. Everybody get that?
Yeah. Freeze protect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
This shows the remote switch from the pump. That's the one you were talking about.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep. That is something I think you pretty much have to do. I mean, it just would be. You'd have to have a
Makes sense.
person in there with a radio and just doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, it's a tough switch with a cover over it,
Yeah,
weatherized.
Yeah.
Okay.
and it controls both sets of pumps and for both structures and.
So there's no-
And there is pretty good. Amount of
So it's up to
concrete.
the operator of the truck. The person coming in to collect it, it's his responsibility to safely get up on top and put the pipe in the top of the tank. That's their responsibility. We're not liable for that, are we?
No, and I think that there's you. I grew up on a dairy farm. We did this all the time, right? It's kind of the same thing. Ours was much simpler than this. But yeah. You know, there's a pretty good hole up there and you drive under it and I think it would just ultimately fall in most of the time. I think the goal is not to touch it, not to get up there, not to deal with it.
Yeah.
Drag a little decoration across the top of your truck as you pull in, right?
That happens, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, does that, cause that doesn't flush out or anything once it dumps, so.
As long as it's gonna take to get to a tank to the point of hauling sludge and flex holes will probably rot
Yeah.
or be changed before the first time.
Could
Who
be,
knows? Yeah,
could be.
it'll be a while. Okay. So 31,000.
Yep.
So you're recommending approval as proposed or partial?
I would do the whole thing if I was the decision maker. Do you want me to move on?
Yeah, I think so.
Next one is a little bit simpler. That is something that we.
The 10,000
Yeah, I was just looking to see, oh, the gas adder is the third one. Looking for, so. The motorized valve, within the SBR, within one of the valves. The process plans had just call out a valve, and then the electrical valves in the PNID drawings allow a motorized valve too, so the valve is actuated, it opens and closes with a motor, and so the contractor is saying that within the process drawings, it didn't necessarily call out the motorized valve, and it does in the electrical and PNID drawings because the valve has to be powered, and they say they missed that on their takeoff.
If they missed it, it's our responsibility to pay for what they missed.
I said no.
I don't agree with you.
So, so they've asked for it and I present it to the owner. You know, this might be something that ultimately we give a little bit on. Because we're gonna be asking them to give in other places, but I've, at this point, I've denied this request. They're gonna come back and push on this more. You know, this might be something that we treat similar to what we did with the dome, aluminum dome. We split the cost with them. And we do that as a little goodwill and ask they kind of do the same on some of the change order items that we're gonna be talking about. Moving forward. Sonny, I got a packet here if you want to follow along. Yeah. I had an agenda. Two. Did I pass those all out?
There's some here, actually.
No, I got it right here. No, I got it right here. I just had it in my file. So we are down, we're talking about these. We've already talked about the first one, so we're talking about this one at this point.
Thank you, Joe.
And we're right here on the agenda, item 3. And we've already seen that already.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thanks. Did you need this?
No, yours.
Thank you.
So it's all material, it's no labor, nothing, it's just.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
But I do, you know, I legitimately believe they didn't bid it. No.
Plenty of documentation to show it. Okay,
So that's item 3 in my agenda, item 2 in their thing, and then the next one, C 4-024. And it has it in the description, gas service allowance adder. You guys following along with me? Get there?
That's the 21,000.
No, it's, yeah, 21, yeah,
380.
24.
this one.
yeah, right.
It says change order.
So we've been kind of talking about this too, you remember, the cost to. Remember the cost to extend gas to the wastewater treatment plant was significantly more expensive than we had been told or budgeted. And so we had $100,000 allowance within the no, we had we can't remember, it wasn't 100,000.
They wanted to do 100, and I think we had 35,000 or something like that, wasn't it?
Kind of the bottom line here is, yeah. I think we had a $55,000 allowance. And so the gas cost $62,718, and then the cost to get the electrical there was another 13,000-ish. And so bottom line is we're $21,000, $382 over budget, over that $55,000 allowance. To get gas, electric, and communications there, and so this isn't the contractor's fault. They need to kind of be made whole here. We've kind of talked about it. last month at length with the council, and so this is kind of to formalize that, so. You know, I would recommend we ultimately do that. So this one's more straightforward too. So this was number one in my little agenda.
This is the one that has already been executed and.
Yes. Well, we don't have a formal change order, but we kind of did approve it and we executed the agreement with the gas company and
Right,
put all that in motion last month.
based on council's approval, so now
Yes.
it's just.
Yes. Now it's just bringing everything, you know, formalizing it, if you will. So if we kind of speed through that one. We get to the change order request number 25. That says MCC load changes. And this one is pretty significant. It's $116,721. And so if you kind of remember back, we got the shop drawings for the switch gear and the MCC stuff and the panel boards all at one big packet. It was like a 1,200 page shop drawing submittal. And so we reviewed that submittal. And I think we approved it with some changes noted. And so that was on August 1st. And so we noted 8 changes, probably 8 changes, 10 changes, I don't know. And, you know, it was some modification within the MCC equipment itself, some adding some things, some deducting or removing some things and reconfiguring things a little bit to address some issues in the bidding document. And ultimately, we got this change order request on May 31st. And so, you know, that's about 9 months after we approved the shop drawings. We assume that there would be a modest change order with these, but not $117,000. And so I think if you look at the supporting documents that they provided here, they basically have $83,000 in MCC and panel cost additions. And then they have a little bit of wiring, $7,250 in wiring and some tax and contractor markups. And so that's where they come out with their $116,000 cost totaling. And then if you turn to the page from automatic system, you can see, you know, we're getting some credits and some adds to the cost, but they don't break any of it out. So it's impossible to objectively review this and say, yeah, this is fair and equitable or not. And so we've asked for additional information. So my recommendation at this point is let's just table it. And I think that one of the things they're concerned about is I think we're playing the game here a little bit, frankly, in that their costs they're trying to protect themselves because they're going to incur some costs with the temp panels and they don't know what we're going to do on the liquidated damages side of things. And I think this goes in the bucket of let's negotiate it, in my opinion.
Paying for the temp power that's gonna go back into their inventory when I take it out next May.
While the temp power panel is used and whether it comes out of their inventory or they buy it, I don't know. I think I got the impression that he had the panels on hand.
Yeah, that's,
Use panels for another job,
Yeah,
you know, and it might serve very well, but we shouldn't have to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
one question on the dollar figure. We shouldn't pay sales tax, should we? $6,100 on their Gilmer letter.
yeah, I looked at that too, and typically we don't.
And what the MU is,
Markup drill. Contractor markup,
oh, okay,
their
thank you.
profit and overhead. But, yeah, you know, that's one item that I would flag. I typically look at these items closer. They didn't provide me with enough detail or my electrical folks with enough detail to objectively look at anything. So again,
Definitely.
I told them to come back and give us more detail, more breakouts so that, you know, we can evaluate these more thoroughly. But I got it, and I wanted to talk to you about it and really show you the big picture.
Well, if they don't come back with more detail, I guess that's even more leverage or,
Well, they will, I'm sure that they will, come back with more detail to some extent, whether it be satisfactory or not,
See the detail, more detail, it leaves it out of it, period.
and this isn't Staub. You know, this is Staub's subcontractor, so it's automatic systems in Kilmer. Mostly automatic systems in this, yeah.
Joe, is this the same contractor that's taking from August to May? That's resulted in this whole panel issue?
No, well, not the same, that's a supplier, right? So that's Eaton, and they're supplying the switchgear. And so they supply the switchgear to Automatic Systems in Kilmer. Automatic Systems, I think, does the integration and programming. And Kilmer does the actual electrical install. I think Kilmer probably ordered the switchgear, but there's certain design elements that they need to design and provide shop drawings for. That's that 1,200-page submittal that came from Automatic Systems. So they're kind of there's a web there that's difficult to understand. And I'm not even gonna claim to fully understand it. The electrical guys deal with them all the time. I don't. But that's a big number. And I don't know, I'm just a little suspect.
so in the letter from Kilmer, in the paragraph, they talk about low change in addition, there's a last sentence, or second to last. Also some additional split circuit or MCC/panel in lieu of split a junction box and SBR structure. There was a split of the junction box. Is that part of the working drawings or what caused?
Also some additional.
Two things there.
I don't know. I don't know. You know, and if they're just throwing that in, well, what's that cost and what is it? We don't know. So,
Well, the original design had a split box. I'm guessing is what they're saying.
I'm guessing the original design didn't have a split circuit and that's one of the changes that got made for, you know, equipment availability or field changes or whatever had to happen.
So if Matt wants to go back to Automatic Systems and.
Yeah.
And
And we talked about, you guys kind of heard that today, one of the things that they asked for, and, you know, Matt said he would provide more breakout in his. Matt is with Kilmer. And, he'd go back to Automatic Systems and ask them for their stuff. And he wasn't overly confident that they would do a great breakout for us. We'll see.
Just Allen Bradley controlled.
Some of it is, like the MCC stuff is Allen Bradley, but the switchgear is Eaton and.
Yeah, I've worked with Automatic Systems.
Yeah.
On glycol separation. And I think it's Adam, who's one of their key engineers, so.
I don't know,
Yeah.
we've been working with Kent on this.
Yeah.
You know, they're a good company, they've been around for a long
They
time.
have, and they specialize in Allen Bradley controls, which is a pretty rare vendor. You know, they're more of an industrial or large industrial control, so. But yeah, it's extremely expensive. We spent $100,000 on a single panel with them once, so.
Mhm, mhm. And the thing is, there's just not a lot of people that do that type of
Right,
integration.
Allen Bradley's is a real specialty.
And stuff's good.
Oh,
It's top of the line, really.
It is, yeah, very expensive.
Um. And hopefully you get what you pay for there.
Yeah.
We like to think you do.
Yeah.
The next one, C, change order request 26. That's that switchboard reconfiguration. This is $65,375. This is the cost that Eaton wanted. The Eaton wanted $40,000 to speed up their manufacture process and separate that automatic transfer switch, and then Kilmer wants $11,000 to basically install a separate automatic transfer switch, and then they both have a markup on it, and the total $65,000. And this is what I was kind of explaining at the onset, that it's kind of off the table anyway. We decided we probably wouldn't pay $65,000 to speed up the process 5 months. We just stay on temp power for that additional time, so my recommendation would be just to forget about it, but they sent us an email 2 days ago or yesterday saying we lost our spot because we didn't react fast enough. Well, I guess that's maybe fine unless you or the council see it differently and if you want me to go back to Eaton and say, we are willing to participate in the cost to expedite the manufacture, then it would speed things up, but we'd have to pay the cost.
We've got a year warranty on the MCC panels, so
2 years,
is it 2 years?
everything 2 years.
I thought it was 1 year in his contract. From Kent, it said 1 year warranty on data startup. On the second page of his letter, on automatic systems letter, the next letter. Not to exceed 18 months from shipment. It's on the top of the next page. On his letter. From Kent.
Kent's only got one day,
There's 2 letters.
there's one from Kilmer, and there's one from Automatic System. So we're talking about,
Oops, sorry.
we're talking about this document. And these are the 2 letters that I was referencing. And we're talking about this switch gear reconfiguration. You were back on the previous one. The previous one was the MCC.
Got it, okay, thanks.
We're committed to the temporary. Anyway, right? Yes.
Well, that's the only way things are gonna operate. For over a year. And the contractor kind of says they don't see a path forward and they want to do that. And I don't see a path forward. And I think we should do that too, and I'm assuming that you guys agree. I don't think we have an option.
So.
It's just, the question is who, if anybody, is gonna have to pay for it? Is the contractor gonna put the bill, or are we gonna cost share in that? And if we cost share in it, how do we share? So that's what these extras are really, they're kind of telling the tale, in that the next one is for that actual temp power. And I think the contractor is hedging their bets a little bit. All these change order costs are high. And we kind of talked about at the onset, a little bit like a poker game, right? I mean, or buying a used car, you kind of start high and try to meet in the middle, if you will. And I think there's some of that gamesmanship going on here.
So with Eaton, and if you said with this. Excuse me. But with Eaton, so if we're not, we've lost our chance to expedite. So
Well, they'll go back and
Are we back to-
renegotiate if we want them to, but we'd have to tell them that, yeah. We're willing, or we want you to renegotiate and we're willing to pay the cost.
Otherwise, we're back to looking at October, because that's a.
That's kind of what we're. And we're already on temp power at that point, so
What change order are we discussing now?
we are discussing
26.
26.
Okay.
And so that is the one for $65,000, and I think this is off the table right now, based on their comment, and unless we really have an interest in expediting it, now my recommendation is to just we think, no, thank you.
Yes, I agree.
And then the last one. Change order request 27 deals with temporary power to the plant. And the contractor is asking for $107,000 to provide that temp service, and all along I've been saying, that's a great idea. Do that, we're not gonna pay for it. We won't charge you liquidated damages. When you don't meet the substantial completion date, we'll consider that substantial completion date potentially. And you know, on the other hand, I don't want to say we're never gonna charge any liquidated damages, because that's part of our leverage, right? So it's kind of a delicate line, and so on May 31st, we got these 3 change orders totaling $280,000, or whatever it is, pretty significant amount of money. And I think I'd table them all. First thing is we have to see if the MCC stuff really comes next month, right? Otherwise, this is all moot. But assuming that it does, and they're telling us it is likely to come, then we're gonna end up negotiating these, and I think a number of these change orders can be negotiated, and at the end of the day, do we pay a fraction of it? Do we split the difference? Do we pay a majority of it? I guess that is part of the negotiation. And then what do we do with liquidated damage? There's a fair amount of strategy there that we'll have to contemplate. I'm not one for liking to play games too much. I just as soon be upfront with them, and I think Jason's like that too with Staub. I think they're pretty good people. But this isn't really Staub. There's very little cost in these change orders that's going to them. It's to the subs. But in some respects, you could argue that the subs maybe dropped the ball on ordering the switchgear when they were supposed to be ordered, or expediting the job drawing processes and whatever. But
If they did drop the ball, or if they did expedite shop drawings or whatever, it's still not our problem. We shouldn't have to pay for that problem.
so that's true. So let's say they sped up the process 6 months. Right now, we're 1.25 years away from getting these. And so maybe we would be 9 or 10 or 12 months away from, there's still a problem. There's still a supply chain issue of whatever you want to call it problem. Interestingly enough, so on a different project I have a small role on this Mayo Clinic proton beam. I just doing the site work, right? But Stantec is doing the big design project. And so, what the first bid was on that project? The first bid package that went out, switchgear. You know how far the project is in the design process? Ain't complete. That's $100 million building. It tells you something, it's all I'm saying. I don't deal with that stuff much. I just happened to take notice that that was there. And everybody else is starting to notice too. Anyway, so kind of the bottom line is there's about $352,000 in change orders here. You know, that $62,000 one is just thrown out, so we're right around $300,000 in change orders. I think the change order for the gas, yeah, obviously, we've already agreed to that. I think the change order for the biosolid loadout stuff, I think we probably should do that. I think the other 4 change orders are negotiable.
Could be a big generator. This amperage, of these panels.
Yeah.
Is it natural gas fired then or diesel on site?
That one is a diesel.
Diesel on site.
The one at the lift station is gas. Natural gas.
Yeah.
But this one's a pretty good size.
I think that with the 800 amp services. Good. Good stuff.
I missed that last meeting. Where is the gas company going from this end in or?
Yeah, they're coming from 100th Street all the way down on the west side of Minnesota Avenue, and I think they're supposed to build it in August. Ish. August.
Like coming onto the highway and the whole bit.
I don't know if they have to come underneath 100th Street or where the gas is there. I can't remember, you know,
South of 100th Street.
of course. Oh, south, so they don't have to cross
I
it.
believe it is south, yep.
So, you know, that's kind of where we're at. I wanted you guys to kind of know that, and I would like to move, you know, if you want to, we need to tell them to do the biosolid loadout thing. Cause that's next, you know, that's in the sequence of construction that needs.
I think that one there, we should, I don't know, I shouldn't say we don't have any choice, but we want it right, because it's gonna be there for 30, 40 years, so I think we need to do that.
That and the gas one we've kind of already agreed to, and I
Yeah.
think the rest of them, like I said, are by and large negotiable.
So if we take 352,797 and take out the no's are 10,971. And the 65,375. That puts it at 276,451.
You know, in a reasonable, you know, we're gonna pay something here. And would they accept splitting that? I guess that would be my first thought,
Starting point.
but I can see what they're willing to do and bring that back to you. You don't, you know, and then you guys can kind of play both sides.
We're kind of getting to the point where there's fewer and fewer landmines left down the road. And we
Yeah.
do have the contingency.
We do. You know, I don't think this is a catastrophic
Right.
deal.
It's very unlikely we're gonna run into another $100,000 problem or $150,000 problem.
Well, on the collection system, we're eating up some costs too. You know,
Sure.
we're running into more rock than we thought.
Yeah.
We're probably $200,000 over budget on that side, but we still have a decent one.
So get the pad, you know.
So I don't think we're in horrible shape.
Right.
Never wanna pay any more than I have to, but I do wanna,
Do what you need.
we need to be fair to people, right?
Yeah.
That's typically the bottom line that you kind of try to steer towards, I think. Any thoughts? Do you want to make a recommendation on at least those 2 items to the council? on the,
I would recommend that those two we recommend approval of, and then deny or table the rest.
negotiate the rest.
I got deny or table.
Motion to approve the 21,382 and the sludge
31,106.
106. Is that all we want to approve now?
I think so.
I'll second that.
Yeah,
Move to-
10,000.
Recommend to approval.
Yeah, it go to the council, of course.
Any other comments?
I'm sorry, Ryland, did you second your own motion?
Oh,
Ross made.
I made the
You made the
motion,
motion,
he seconded
I
it.
he
second.
amended it, kind of, okay,
He seconded it.
okay,
27.
thank you.
21 is for the gas utility allowance. And 31,106 is for the sludge
Yeah.
loadout station. Description with those totals. Loadout. Station. Utility allowance. Okay. Seeing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, oh, same sign. That's approved. Okay, anything else on stops?
Wastewater stuff. Move on to the collection conveyance. Lots continues to happen there. You guys get the update and other updates coming out tomorrow, by the way, or at least that's the plan. For the residents. Contractor continues to work with 3 utility crews, on the East Center Street area. Right now, they have a utility crew down by the wastewater treatment plant, tying those 2 pipe systems together, the stuff that was constructed, part of the treatment facility and stuff, yeah. Fitzgerald constructed, and then they also have, on Third Street and Second Avenue West, contractor continues to install the water main and force main. In fact, on that L-shaped stretch up there by the park, they've got most of the mains in, but they still have some water main and some sewer and water services to pull, so they'll be up there for
On
another.
these, Center Street, are they up to First Avenue Northeast yet? Corner?
Yeah,
They are, okay.
yeah. But they do have they've got a stub pipe out of that intersection before they can close that off and open that up. So my guess is it's gonna be into next week before that happens.
Okay.
But they are making progress.
Mhm.
And then they also moved a utility or a street reconstruction crew on, so they're starting to they're about 2/3 done. Subcutting and bringing rock in on Third Street. Southwest, I guess that would be. And so from there, I think they'll move over to First Place. Southwest over by Stopes Cove and subcut those streets. And then ultimately, I think they'll come back to First Street Southeast down by the Garden Park and redo that section of road. So they'll be here for a while, subcutting and placing gravel and then ultimately prep and pave.
So by mid-July, all the crews will be downtown.
I would think so. Coming up, you'll see in kind of the notice. There are a couple Minnesota Avenue crossings that are planned.
Yeah, several.
the thought is that some of those will be done under traffic, so basically half at a time with a flagger and half, or at least one of them will require a closure.
Okay.
So we'll obviously get a notice out to people when that closure goes into effect, but you know, that'll be fairly significant impact to people, so we want to do that.
Good.
You know, and the electrician or the concrete pads for the transformers, I think got poured last week for the lift stations. Lift stations are in decent shape in terms of they're really starting to come together, the structures are there, and some of the site work is starting to get done and the electrical is getting done, and they're making progress on that, so that continues to move in the right direction. And then there's continues to be quite a bit of effort being placed with turf restoration, fine grading within boulevards and ditches. They're making progress. Things are improving. They certainly have more work to do. But they're working at it. It'd be better than it rained every once in a while now.
Opening up the manholes, the new manholes.
Raising manholes to grade, yep. And then they'll have to get patched back, and then we'll ultimately pave around them once they're raised to finish grade. So
At the
they're,
corner of Fifth Street and Second Avenue, there's 3 water connections.
valve boxes.
Yeah, there's one of them really tilted. I don't know if they'll level that one out or,
Have to dig that up and straighten it. There's some settlement that happened on Fifth Street, as you probably noticed.
right, yeah,
I think that's essentially trench settlement,
okay.
within that area. That's one of the few areas we're seeing trench settlement, but it was wet there. And unfortunately, that happens.
You may just want to share with the committee what, how Fifth Street's gonna be smoothed out.
Yeah, so there are some trench settlements within Fifth Street. You can kind of see some ponding.
On the southeast side.
Really right down the middle of the street, it's sanitary sewer trench, and it's settled, you know, the sanitary was 10 feet deep there, the soils were wet. And it was constructed late in the year, and as it went through the winter, there's some settlements that happen there within the subsurface soils. I think the pavement's fine, it is a flexible pavement, but ultimately, they'll come through when they pave where they'll probably place a leveling course, fill in the settlements, and then pave a wear course over the top, and it should really be fine.
Timberline,
Timberline Drive, we talked about that sanitary sewer rerouting. I did meet with that property owner. He asked us to stake some things. A couple different alignments and show him exactly what trees would come down with which alignment. We've done that. We just haven't reconnected with him yet. I sent him a text last week to meet, and he hasn't got back to me, so Jeff was gonna stop in and talk to him this week and see where we're at. Upcoming construction impacts, I think the biggest push is to reopen East Center Street. And once that gets done, they'll probably head north and south on First Street. And that would allow that to get back open. That's a pretty important thing. And then the other, you know, there's obviously other impacts, but the biggest ones are gonna be the crossings on Minnesota Avenue. And so we'll make sure to get notice out on those, especially with any closures. But we're hoping that at least half of those can get done under traffic. They just flag, so we'll have 1 lane open, 2 flaggers, and you use half the road at a time. With some traffic control that typically is pretty efficient, and the volumes aren't high enough there that it shouldn't work just fine. Fitzgerald has a pay request, another $610,951.40. That would, of course, go to the June city council meeting. Any questions on construction or what we do before we move into the Orinoco Park Grinder Station discussion?
did you want to comment on the televising and the jetting and?
Oh, yeah, that's another thing that started this week. As part of the contract, we are having the contractor televise clean and televise all of the sanitary sewer manholes. And with that cleaning and televising, we'll get an inspection report. And so when they televise, they literally first run a jetter through and clean out any debris within the lines. My guess is none of those lines have ever been cleaned. And we've already found a few questionable things or things that needed some attention, so that's good. And then with the televising, we get a report, and the report says, you know, there's 385 feet between these two manholes, and at, you know, 100 feet and 150 feet and 247 feet, there's a service connection, right or left. And so with that, you can tell where people are connected. And so that would be a way that we can actually locate services that are existing, because we really have no viable records. So that's a great thing. And it'll allow us to put some mapping together that might mean something. So, and it's a good thing that they're getting maintained, and their impact will be modest. We might, you know, every once in a while, there can be an issue with a jetter truck going by and people get stuff. You know, they'll hear it, or they'll occasionally get a back up into a house, but it's rare. Other than that, and the truck being out, people won't notice.
So the documentation for all those services to the house, is that being electronically compiled for Public Works then?
We get a report,
Paper.
you get a physical report, digital report. And probably paper if you wanted to. But, yeah. So what we would do is we would take that GPS in the stuff and put it in CAD and then map it all out. And then you got something.
So what are they jetting out? I guess I'm a little bit. lost.
Sewer mains,
Sewer mains, the new ones.
no, the old ones.
So like where there's a neighborhood using the same system, they're doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because they'll be public systems, right? Ultimately, and
I know what you're getting.
yeah, and then we go into the lift stations. And so, for example, if there's gravel and not nice things in it, we just assume that get cleaned up now. So that's where we're at. Anything else on before we jump to the grinder stations?
I think that's it.
So I did, with the agenda attach an email. I did bring a few copies of the email, if anybody wants one, but Rylan, did you bring one?
That's fine.
Here.
I can, you have one copy.
I got two, so maybe you guys will.
I think I read
It was
it.
attached to the meeting
Yeah, I
agenda.
read it before.
Yeah.
Got together, so.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Kane, did you see that?
I have not.
I'll share my copy with you shortly.
Wonderful part. Luke? Here's the shower.
3 or 4 more.
Three.
I don't know. I'm good.
But we can talk about it a little bit. So in Orinoco Park, you remember that we had that archaeological issue where we had some findings? And that kind of precluded us to, you know, unless we wanted to do lots of excavation and digging and studies, using the state and federal money to install a grinder station to serve the bathroom out there. And so what we did with the project is we just extended a small diameter force main to within 115 feet of that building by directional drilling, and we stopped. Okay, so the cost to get that force main to within 115 feet of the building is 16,000. I want to say,
It's right there.
18,436.
I think it's the second one.
I'm just looking up your minutes, sorry, or your agenda.
Didn't say that.
18 what we can say.
No, so that cost is the cost for the to install the grinder station.
Okay.
So the $16,000 is the cost to is included in the contract just to get the force main out there. Cause there's 550 feet of force main that has to go in, right? And then the last 115 feet plus the grinder station, plus the abandonment of the septic tank. And the connection to the new system, that's another $18,000. So you add that up and it's, I don't have the numbers in front of me because I gave them to Sunny, but it's $34,000. Ish. So it's a lot of money, right, to serve that building, and what we said we were gonna do is I was supposed to get a quote for Ellingson to install the grinder station outside of the state contract. We would have to pay for that independently. Not using any state money, so we don't have a problem with the archaeological piece. And that's $18,436 for Ellingson to do that. The city would pay for that directly.
It was approved to have a grinder pump through to begin with, right? That was in the original
No,
contract. Oh, it wasn't.
no. It wasn't because we ran into that archaeological problem. We were always planning to until that happened. And then because of that, we decided to pull that back and not do it as part of the state funded project. And so that's why we got a quote from Ellingson to install the grinder station. And just have the city pay for it separately, and that cost is $18,436. And what I was trying to point out is, you know, there's a lot of money to service that. The 18,000 for the grinder station plus the 16,000 for the pipe to get to the grinder station, and I'm just saying, do you want to spend that? I have no problem doing it. I see there's value to it. I'm just kind of saying, I just want you to know.
So I'm going from memory because I didn't bring the spreadsheet with me, but I think we were planning to use our American Rescue Plan money to cover the $18,436. We had like 79,000 currently, so we're using 51,000 of that for the 2 message boards. And then 18,000 for this, and that's leaving about $4,400 left to cover the wiring and everything for the message boards. I think that was our plan.
Yeah, and the $16,000 is already in the contract, you know, that's already
Contract, yes.
yeah, part of the state's, you know, the state funded contract. So if the city wants to move forward with it, then what we really need to do is approve Ellingson's contract proposal for this $18,000, and that's kind of facilitate that if we want to do that. It's what we talked about before. I'm just trying to let you know everything.
So I make a motion, we recommend to council that we approve the Ellingson's contract to install the grinder station, abandon the septic system, and complete the 115 feet for $18,436. For a second,
Yeah, second.
Larry?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Kane, we would have to get an electrical disconnect from inside that building outside too.
What is this number up in the?
It's the total, if you add the 16,000 plus the 18,000 in the letter, I just did the math, so I have it there on my copy.
Oh, and that's what you were saying is the 16 is already in the
In the contract,
contract.
yeah. Just trying to,
Transparency, we love it.
so we're good with that. So next item, discuss email to. Oh, yeah, this is the email.
Right, and you need, a vote, you have the motion and the second, but
Any other comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. It's approved, thank you.
So wastewater treatment facility operator, Sunny. Just dropped off an RFP for us. Yeah. Do you wanna?
let me walk through it a little bit,
Yeah.
or you wanna read it at your leisure and then.
Whatever you guys wanna do.
Let's just take 5 minutes and look at it. And
It'll take me longer to have to read it.
Sunny, you've got certain things highlighted in yellow. What does that mean?
Since I called on colleague to help me out, I wanna make sure that we're tailoring this to our specific facility here, and some of that I'm thinking those are open to discussion.
You're asking for input on those?
Yeah. One of the things that makes this different than others is very new, right?
There's no history.
Yeah. So like, yeah, or you can't get them out word because it's. We don't have history there, but. Right. And then, scheduling days to see our operation.
Has Mike had the chance to look at this?
Yeah. I wanted to get feedback from this group first before I. Give them page 7, we can't give them before they gather things. I don't know if the $1 million is sufficient. What our expectation on staffing is. I don't know that we need any capital improvements. Given the.
Shouldn't.
We shouldn't, I agree. And it said 10 years, I'm not willing to go to a 10-year agreement on that. That's why I stuck in the 3 years with an option. Maybe two-year extensions at our discretion. But building in there too, I wanna know how, what their process is for, grooming their own employees for licensure at different levels. Because we know that we don't want that built into our ultimate agreement that, you know, Kane and whatever. Really benefit from that.
Have you had much for detailed discussions with likely providers?
Enough to let them know that, you know, they know this is a brand new thing, and they kind of, I think, gone out and looked at back when it was bid. To know what it was gonna be like. So, yeah.
So just a quick reference, as far as identifying this as a Class A requirement operator. And then it's an SBR sequence batch reactor type of system. Or if you share that with them. So they know what kind of system it is.
I think one of the things that we should do is just attach the permit.
That might be the best,
MPDS permit talks about
all the details.
all the details in terms of our effluent limits, the permitted plant, the process that is being employed. All of those types of, you know, the treatment, that it's a Class A plan, and all of those details are in the permit.
Type of monitoring. Permit reports, whatever the case may be.
And we can invite folks out, they really probably should walk through the facility just to see it, because they'll want to see it. I would want to see it if I was them.
Right. And it does ask for a date in there, and that would be kind of up to your schedule, I would think. You and or Jeff or. I think
Like visit.
yeah. That's on page 4. And on the blank.
Fortunately, there's only a handful of people that would potentially bid this.
Right. And they all know each other, right?
Right.
So,
It's the brother-in-law and the two uncles, that kind of thing.
there's a little more separation than that.
Early on, we were talking about putting some type of clause into, and it may be here, I just haven't seen it. The clause about doing some training for public works people.
Yeah, and I just spoke to that about how they train their people, because that will be part of our ultimate agreement.
Okay,
And as we evaluate what their process is, how open they are to doing that. You know, what their escalation program is, their
Right.
promotional program. Part of that's gonna be in their delivery too, right?
And do you have operation of the collection conveyance system within the RFP? You know, for example, the lift stations and those types of things?
Grinders.
Grinder stations, is that included or is it not?
That's probably. I'm not sure that's where I'm gonna need their expertise. And that's gonna, yeah, this is just a draft. Clearly noted every single page. But yeah, but we do wanna get it out.
right. And
So
there,
what's the schedule or the process to get this out? I assume that council's gonna have to approve this and then we send it out, or do we just staff approve it and send it out and then council ultimately approves the selector?
The process. Both in the RFP. Calls for and I would guess it's going to be this group that would serve as a board for scoring them. Page
I would almost think that you'd have to select somebody in August. So that they can be part of the commissioning phase in September. And begin operation assistance in October. It's gonna take some time to execute contracts and. Do all that, so you would have to. Have the. Proposals due by,
I'm thinking mid-July, and we give them 3-4 weeks max.
And they're aware of our time frame
but it's June. 13th already.
for.
So on page 11, that's where it talks about evaluating the respondents. It's gonna be done by an evaluation board created for this purpose. And you'll make your decision based on the information gathered.
So July 18th is our council meeting. And then there's an August 15th, but that's,
You guys are gonna have to have some special meetings.
what's that?
You're gonna have to have some special meetings.
I think so.
You might want to anyway, just to interview the folks and.
Okay.
I've got to step out here in about 5 minutes too. I don't know if we're getting close.
Joe, what's your experience on RFPs? Have you had reviews of these in the past?
I have not, other staff have.
I don't know. You know, something looks like you put a lot of work into it. I just want to make sure we're leveraging all the sources we have to make sure that there's something we're not overlooking or maybe we'll get some feedback on the people that we're seeking a proposal from too. So today's the 13th, so do you have a time frame of when you want to send this out, Sonny?
I dated it for tomorrow, but that might have been ambitious on my part.
Yeah, I think just for all of us to look at it and read it. Joe, no doubt, needs to, and Kane too as well. Need to spend some time looking at it as well, so I mean, a lot of it is the evaluation matrix. Page 11 to the end, I guess. But
Like realistically, if we got this out by the end of the month, we'd be doing good.
But you know your schedule, right?
Yeah. It's a busy time of year, but it just, this stuff takes time.
you know, the 23rd might be optimistic, but the 30th for sure. As far as the council reviewing this, I think it's probably. Not that they shouldn't look, I think we just better served, I guess, in time wise, and what we're dealt with here to. Keep it with our committee and you and Kane and all of us, Joe.
Yeah.
We give you feedback and
They send out the RFP, have staff, direct staff to us, and the RFP as soon as it's available.
Well, quite honestly speaking, as a city administrator, that's kind of part of the job, right? I mean, to have that role, obviously, it's just sending out the solicitation. It's not making any decision as to who would be awarded. It's not tied to any dollar amount. It's just facilitating that process. toward getting a decision made by council, and that would have to come from council as would negotiating the contract.
From your conversations with them, what type of turnaround time would they do they need, or have they shared that with you?
Well,
2
they-
weeks, 3 weeks, or?
They're used to doing this stuff, and so it depends on how hungry they are, and this is gonna be an exciting opportunity. That the people I've spoken to, they want it.
Sure, okay,
So I venture to guess that the turnaround on getting the RFQ response back is not as critical to them as it is getting the award and then making sure that they are going to have the staff in place,
sure.
because they're gonna be ramping up to.
What
And
kind of,
I'm sorry, obviously, with this plant, they're not gonna put their newbies on it, right? They're gonna put on those people who stood out.
what kind of people are you talking about that want it?
People service, Viola, and, can't ever think of the other one.
They're just in that business, this
Yep,
business?
water and wastewater management, that's all they do, outsource.
I
CBR,
don't know nothing about it.
is it CBRE is the?
I'm not aware of the third. I've only heard of those two of the operators I've talked to around here. There's People Service in Lewiston with Concord. They're around, yeah. People Service is based out of Omaha, Nebraska. So they service a lot of Midwest states. Sure. Yeah, it's peopleservice.com, or the other one is VEOLIA. North America, I think, is the other service.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's, Joe, you need to take off.
Yeah.
Any other questions, I guess, for Sunny right now? I guess just take a look at it.
US Water Services Corp.
I'm sorry.
US Water Services Corp.
Okay.
They're also moving into the wastewater treatment management. Used to work for People Service, that's why.
So, well, if with Joe leaving, we won't have a quorum to really make any other motions or
Yeah, sorry,
decisions, so.
I got a project I gotta turn in first thing tomorrow, so.
No problem. I think, the remainder of the agenda, we can. Oh, I guess the last item, Sonny, while you're still here before we leave, the decommissioning letter to the developers.
That's ready to go to, Mike for review.
He's reviewing that now, or, okay.
The dome and-
Can we really give them a firm date yet, or is it kind of an October date? The month of October is when they're switching.
Still talking one, right?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Still around.
Yeah,
it won't be a light switch, but.
No, it's not.
No.
Okay, and we'll touch base on these timeframes at our July meeting for water and sewer hookups. Any change to the ordinance, so. With that, I make a motion, the meeting adjourned at 8:20.
Third.
Favor, sorry if I was saying aye.
All right, roll.
We'll get her done. Thank you.
Exactly.
see you, Joe.
Yep, see
Thank
you all.
you. Meeting adjourned late.
I see you.
Thursday, 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
I got one.